Hey everyone, welcome back to Friends Are Weird, your place for weird news and even weirder friends. I'm your co-host Joey.
And I'm your co-host, Stone.
Stone, we've got a delightful episode ahead for all 20 of our listeners. I'm going to tell you a tragic tale of Wally, the emotional support alligator, and then we're going to talk about why you shouldn't kick bison, because we probably should have already known that.
All right, well, that sounds incredibly fun. First up for this episode, I want to talk about the first ever AI-generated racist school principal. Next on my list, I want to talk about how Jerry Seinfeld really wants to be a canceled comedian. And lastly but not leastly, let's talk about how the next vice president of the United States of America just executed her political future, as well as several beloved family pets at a gravel pit. But
Goodness.
first, before we get into today's episode, we're celebrating a benchmark for the show. We just got our first ever negative comment.
How,
The
how,
first.
how
Sorry,
Sorry, I
go for
wasn't,
it.
no, I wasn't trying to cut you off. I was just saying how exciting.
Yeah, it is. And the first of hopefully many. We got ourselves called out for not appealing to the over 40 anti Trump Republican demographic that we've clearly been aiming for this whole time. To all the Lincoln Project guys over 40 out there who think that we're ignorant for not sharing their beliefs about King Charles's horses, we're sorry, and we will try to do better, like you told us to. Well, Joey, you
Well,
want to kick us off?
I do just real quick. Make sure if you do hate our views or if you love them, like, subscribe, drop a comment, tell us how we can do better. We're probably not going to take your advice, but tell us anyway. We appreciate
And
it.
if and if you like our little show that we're producing here, how about you drop us a like and a comment and a subscription so you can tell us how much you like it.
Awesome. Well, let's get things going. And to get things going, I'm going to make you all really sad. I'm going to tell you a story about Wally, the emotional support alligator. In ordinary times, the social media accounts devoted to Wally Gator documented the nearly 6 foot long emotional support alligator's adventures around Pennsylvania, visiting nursing homes, splashing in Philadelphia's Love Park Fountain, which I'm just going to pause there. Love Park Fountain. That sounds like a place where you get STDs. Anyway, Wally the emotional support gator has met mayors and has amassed hundreds and hundreds of thousands of admirers that get to hug and hold him. But in recent days, however, things have taken a sharp turn for the worse, and his social media account has been overtaken with pleas of help. Wally, the emotional support alligator, is missing in Georgia. His
What?
owner, his owner Joey Henney says he was kidnapped while traveling, recovered by local authorities, and then released into a swamp. Now, if you know anything about alligators, you know that once they're domesticated, they're not supposed to be reintroduced back into the wild. And to make matters worse, it's assumed that Wally Gator has some sort of brain trauma or brain injury that actually makes him docile. He's a lovable alligator, and Wally was stolen by some jerks who like to drop alligators off into someone's yard to terrorize them. Could you imagine that as a prank? Like, somebody just drops off an alligator into your backyard?
Or to steal an alligator as a prank. Like, seriously, prank content has gone way too far, and I hope they get the culprits, because, man, that is so evil. Poor
No,
Wally.
I agree. It
And
actually reminds me. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Andy's got a soft head, so he's like totally
Mm-hmm.
docile. Like he's a special little guy. That's
Yeah,
not very nice to do to an alligator like Wally.
especially because his owner relies on him. His owner suffers from depression and anxiety, and his doctor has actually certified Wally as an emotional support animal. So it's really quite a sad thing. But it reminded me, you and I were going to steal an animal and drop it off in somebody's backyard once.
I oh my god, tell me how I knew you were going there. Yeah, I used to have this roommate who had a dog. Uh, well, I think we could say the dog's name. I'm not going to mention the roommate's name, but her name was Cece.
Mm-hmm.
And like I lived with these guys for a couple months, and he had this dog named Cece, who he just let shit all over the apartment. And it wasn't my dog. Like I just kind of had to live with. I was kind of a beggar at that point, so clearly I had no say in how often Cece goes outside. Like I'd try to take her out when possible, but it was a really disgusting, fucking horrible place for Cece. And he used to just let her shit all over the place. There's
Mm-hmm.
landmines all over the carpet of this apartment. And yeah, we totally had a plan to basically do the same thing, except I'm
But for good.
sure, yeah,
But
we were trying to do it for good.
yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I wasn't actually planning to do it. But
Uh,
it probably would have been the right thing to do to free CC.
yeah,
We
yeah.
even
Our
we
our
even
thought
talked about like writing a screenplay for
yeah.
the free CC movie.
Yeah, our thought process was this dog was poorly taken care of, borderline abused, maybe not necessarily physically, but emotionally, and like
At
was just
least
very
neglected.
neglected. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And we thought, you know what, if we take this dog, we find a nice family in the suburbs across the street from the apartments you lived at, if we just drop it off in their backyard, maybe Cece will have a better home. We lost contact with those friends. I haven't talked to them in years, so who knows what happened to Cece. But Cece, if you're listening, this one goes out to you, kid.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. I see when you told me a story about an emotional support alligator, I thought you were talking about this other alligator from Florida. Like some dude had an alligator that was like famous. He had this alligator for like the last 35 years or something. And every year, he would renew his license for alligator ownership. And it had to have been personal because like he was the only guy in his town that actually had an alligator. They just changed the rules out from under him and like completely changed what it takes to renew your license, and came in and stole him and just sent him off into the wild. And
Damn.
it was like total bullshit. Like he had a whole social media presence, and I just hope that the guy you're talking about whose alligator was stolen, like it was like legally an emotional support alligator. I just hope that he wasn't that guy like bringing it on a plane. Like, oh, I have to have this because flying is scary. Like, then I could see that being a problem. But it
Well, I
doesn't
mean,
sound like that's the case. It sounds like he was out of town, so he obviously probably flew somewhere without it
no, no,
and
no.
just
He
got
traveled
fucking
with
jacked.
it, but like he traveled. You wouldn't take it on the actual airplane. You put it in a cargo hold, and it flies like.
And see that's the whole purpose though of like making an animal emotional support uh is because one second uh is because like it allows you to actually take it on a plane with you. Like people have literally tried that shit with ostriches and like meerkats, and there's an emotional support everything, and those people often take it like to their seat with them. Can you imagine sitting next to a guy with just like a full grown alligator and like, no, no, he's cool. Like he's
I mean,
he's a special needs alligator, and he's here for my comfort, and fuck your
I mean, it
comfort.
it would be sketchy for sure. But yeah, he was vacationing, and wherever he was at, they had him in like a holding little pen outside somewhere, and they broke into the pen and kidnapped him. The gator
See,
napped him.
that's just not right, man.
Hmm,
What
it's
did you
fucked
say?
up.
What did you say the gator's name was?
Wally Gator.
Wally Gator.
Mhm.
Well,
He's
wherever you
actually
are,
the sorry. I keep cutting you off. I'm such a rude co-host, but he's actually the alligator that inspired the design and the alligator for Loki, alligator Loki.
interesting.
Hmm.
Well, wherever you are, I mean, he's a special needs alligator. He might have been the guy that left that comment for us, and to which I wish you all the best, Wally the alligator, Wally the low key alligator. That
Good
is
luck, Wally.
that is straight up despicable.
Despicable me. Tell me about your first story.
All right, so my first story, uh, it comes straight from like a scrapped plot for HBO's show Vice Principals. A principal in Baltimore, Maryland, was just exonerated after it was found out that the former athletic director at his school had framed him using AI to imitate his voice in a 45-second long clip of him making derogatory comments about the black students attending his school and blaming the Jewish faculty who worked there. The former athletic director was apparently getting back at the man for opening an investigation against him for misappropriating school funds. So he AI generated his voice saying that the black kids attending the school were ungrateful assholes who couldn't test their way out of a paper bag. Uh, According to authorities, Darian, the athletic director, had left a pretty obvious paper trail, Googling things like how to frame my boss using his own voice and AI, using like the school computers. And literally everybody who knows the principal, like on a personal level, thought it was probably bullshit because apparently this guy's like the nicest guy ever. This principal is. It sounded completely out of character for him to say something like that. This resulted in the school receiving hateful messages for weeks, and everybody knew right away that it was Darian who did it because despite being only hired at the district last summer, he'd already like earned a reputation for being a giant dick to everyone around him. And he fired one of the school's beloved coaches who's been there for like at least a couple decades. Uh, so Darian was arrested at the airport for trying to fly to Houston, Texas with a firearm. And they ran a background check and found out he was running away from a warrant due to the AI incident. That and like misappropriating the school funds. So if there was a Vice Principals season 3, this most likely would have been the plot. Danny McBride and Walton Goggins would have pulled it out masterfully. But
I
yeah,
just
it
love
was
I just
pretty terrible.
I love that this guy is intelligent enough to not only Google how to frame my boss, but also to take a firearm into an airport.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. It would have been the perfect crime if it wasn't for those meddling TSA agents who don't let you fly with guns on a plane and haven't for over 2 decades by now. But yeah, it was almost the perfect crime.
Almost. What an asshole. Hey, speaking of assholes, you know that you should, one, when you're in nature, you should never mess with wildlife. You should also especially never try to kick an animal that's probably 10 times your size. You're aware of that, right?
I've heard of this advice before. I
Hmm.
don't know if I subscribe to it, but I have heard that mentioned.
Well, a man was accused of kicking a bison in the leg at Yellowstone National Park while, shockingly, under the influence of alcohol, and was injured by the animal and later arrested, according to park officials on Monday. Clarence Yoder of Idaho Falls, Idaho, approached the bison, quote unquote, too closely on the afternoon of Sunday, this last Sunday, on a road about 7 miles east of the park's west entrance. Basically, this man and his buddy were driving around drunk as shit, stumbled across some bison, got out of their vehicle, walked up to the bison, and just out of nowhere decided to kick it.
Wow. Like really just hey, there's a buffalo. Let's go kick it in the shin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. As of now, the park doesn't have a whole lot of extra details. However, both of them have were arrested. Yoder, the kicker, faces 4 charges stemming from his arrest, and they are being under the influence of alcohol to a degree that may endanger oneself, disorderly conduct as to create or maintain a hazardous condition, approaching wildlife, and disturbing wildlife. The driver of the vehicle in which Yoder traveled was driven by 37-year-old McKenna Bass of Idaho. So this sounds like the world's best couple. This sounds like the people who this Halloween are going to dress up like Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix from the new Joker movie. She was arrested and charged for driving under the influence, interference and failure to yield to emergency light activation, so they were trying to run from police, and disturbing wildlife. As of now, both have waived their right to representation because that's probably the smartest thing that you can do in this case is not get a professional lawyer involved and entered not guilty pleas. So they're just like, fuck it, we'll see how this goes.
God damn. It's really too bad that that buffalo didn't just go full buffalo on him. That's
Right?
absolutely terrible. That sounds like an asshole who needed his face like literally stomped into the ground. That's wow. That's so oh man. Well, at least they're waiving their rights to counsel.
Yep.
And yeah, it sounds like they're stupid enough to do it again as soon as they get out, but we'll just have to see.
What's particularly crazy and also disheartening is that Yellowstone said that this has been the first reported incidence of visitors being injured by a bison this year. However, there was one reported incident in 2023 and three incidences of people messing with buffalo in 2022. Now, I don't know if you know this, Stone, but a full grown male bison can reach up to 2,000 pounds and can run up to 30 miles per hour. Why would you fuck with that?
Fucking rednecks, I guess. I mean, I can't explain Florida man. I can't explain buffalo fuckers like them. Uh,
Buffalo
I don't know.
fuckers.
The world has just gone mad. Oh no, he kicked it. He didn't fuck it. But same thing, really. I mean,
Same,
I'm
same.
sure. I'm sure you're gonna get the same results for both actions. But wow, that's cool. Now, as terrible as that is, I would have loved to have been there and seen it in person, but only if it like stomped his brains out into the ground. Um,
No.
yeah, the fact that it just kind of stood there and took it, like, yeah, I, I don't know, but that's really unfortunate. Damn. Well, next up, the world's funniest comedian, according to nobody other than Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld really wants you to cancel him. He's almost literally begging for it at this point. He told David Remnick of the New Yorker Radio Hour this week that the reason TV shows like All in the Family and Cheers and MASH don't air anymore is because of the woke left and cancel culture. Uh, I don't know. I've got some news for Jerry, though. It turns out that you actually can watch those shows on a little known network called TV Land. Like they're all still there, and the left isn't trying to cancel TV Land. It's just not a thing that's happening. It turns out that the reason why those shows aren't on like major networks anymore, it's not because of the woke left, but because they actually aired back in the 70s. And there's a lot of new TV that's been taking their place ever since. He might have heard of a recent show called Seinfeld, which also wasn't politically correct, and about 187,000 others that have come out since that show stopped releasing new episodes. Uh, what season is it even of It's Always Sunny by now? Like
Like,
45?
yeah, like 19 or something like that.
I, I don't know about you, but as a woke lefty myself, I'm certainly not trying to cancel that show. And from what I understand, neither is literally anybody at all, despite the fact that that show is anything but politically correct.
Hey,
It
hey,
turns
hey,
out,
real quick, you want to be careful calling yourself a woke lefty. We don't want to alienate our 40 plus crowd who mostly are anti Trumpers but are still totally GOPers. So just check yourself. Do better.
You're right. I'm sorry to that guy. So, as Lincoln Project Republicans such as myself, I'm not trying to cancel It's Always Sunny. But it turns out you could actually make a joke about just about anything, so long as it's like actually funny. Uh, I feel like he's just trying to get in with the Rogan crowd or something, which is
Mm-hmm.
pretty hilarious considering Rogan's really not that funny at all at stand up. Rogan at least comes up with new material though. I mean, it sucks, but it he at least doesn't have a catchphrase, you know. He's still not asking, "What's the deal with food served on an airplane?" Uh, uh, like at least it's not that. And like literally everyone in his circle, like who's that MMA comedian, that former MMA guy that uh, like switched to stand up comedy and within a month put out like just the worst stand up special. Like even he is less of a hack than Jerry Seinfeld. Um, Jerry apparently also just put out a movie. Like I don't know if this was all promotional for his movie, but he just put out like a mockumentary about Pop Tarts. Because Jerry Seinfeld of the show Seinfeld really likes Pop Tarts.
Yeah.
Uh, and apparently it sucks. Like from every single review that I've heard, like the movie just really sucks a dick. Uh, it's literally just rehashed jokes from the Seinfeld show. Like there's a cereal Nazi that's like, "No cereal for you." Like uh it's so cringeworthy. But yeah, apparently this started with him though back in 2015 when he
Mm-hmm.
proudly announced that he's also joining the list of comedians that are no longer going to play college campuses after a super funny joke that he told about how if you use a cell phone in the modern era, you're like a gay king, and
Mm-hmm.
like nobody laughed because it's just not that funny a joke. He immediately turned, "Oh, it's the woke left. They're canceling me. What's up with that?" But I don't know. Larry David and Julia Louis Dreyfus have been wildly successful making un-PC sitcoms, and haven't had a problem. Probably because they're actually funny people. Uh, I recommend he does what Kramer did, and just go up on stage and start saying the N word over and over again.
Just have a full meltdown until you're actually canceled. He's basically doing what Chappelle's doing or did. I don't know. Maybe Chappelle's kind of made a little bit of a redemption, but look, you can say offensive jokes as long as they're funny. If people don't find them funny, it's not because we're all sensitive little libtards. It's just because you're not funny.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that's just it. Like Dave Chappelle, yeah. While there are like some annoying people on the left that like they already have this impression of him, like they already don't like him. Like
Mm-hmm.
even if he makes zero trans jokes on his next special, they're just gonna not watch it and complain when it comes out, which of course he's not gonna do because every all press is good press for him, and that keeps getting him talked about. So of course Chappelle's gonna make trans jokes on his next special,
Mm-hmm.
um, but he doesn't have to. I mean, he's
Mm-mm.
seriously still like one of my favorite stand-ups. I wish he would stop with this weird thing that he's doing, but come on, man. Now you're in the boat of Jerry Seinfeld, Chappelle. Like,
Gross.
like, yeah. Look at who's in the same boat as you.
Hey, Chappelle, Seinfeld, do better.
Do better. Do
Do
better.
better.
As
Maybe
under
that should maybe
forties, as under
maybe that should
forties
be the new
communists,
podcast
we don't
slogan.
like it. We're your weird friends. Do better.
Do better. Well, hey, you've been really excited for this story. You were kind of filling me in on a little bit of it, but without the spoilers. You ready?
All right. Yeah. So have you heard of Kristi Noem, Joey? She's
So I like to consider myself like pretty in the know when it comes to politics, but I have never heard of this woman.
yeah, well, probably because she's got a stupid name like Gnome. Like I picture the weird little bearded guys that live on your lawn. But no,
Yeah.
she's the Republican governor of South Dakota, and
Mm.
she's been high on Trump's pick for the next VP, like high on his list for the next VP pick, which is a pretty ballsy move in itself. But she put out a book recently uh, where she revealed that she enjoys shooting her family pets. Uh, like it's just a thing that she loves doing. Like she's basically cosplaying as a country fried uh, like farmer type, and
Mm.
she just describes it in her book as her doing the unpleasant things that need to be done because that's just life in the country. But so her daughter had this dog who was 14 months old. Her name was Cricket. And this dog was raised like bred to be a hunting dog, which she didn't bother to train the dog. So it just liked killing birds and it got at her neighbor's chickens, but she didn't bother hiring a trainer or training the dog herself. She just expected this this fucking dog that was still a puppy. It was only 14 months old to just instinctively know what to do like on a quail hunt.
Mm.
And of course it didn't. She described it as being like super friendly and upbeat, and because of that, she fucking hated this dog is what she wrote. So, one day while her daughter was at school, she took it to this gravel pit on her land and executed it with the shotgun.
Jesus.
And if that wasn't enough, so she did that like in front of a bunch of workers, right? Like there were a bunch of landscapers on her property doing some work for her. She did that in front of them and decided while she was at it, she's also gonna get a goat that they had. Like they had this male goat that you're supposed to get a goat fixed because if you don't, like it has these huge balls, like bigger than
Mm.
even your balls, Joey.
Like my dad.
Yeah, bigger than your dad's balls. Uh,
Wow.
and they put out like this smelly musk that smells fucking awful and makes them kind of aggressive. If you've got a male goat,
Like your dad.
mm-hmm, yep, he smells like shit and he's a really, really angry man. um, um, so she never bothered to get this goat fixed, and she's like, you know what? While we're at it, I'm gonna execute this goat. So she brought the goat down to the gravel pit and shot it with the shotgun. Not only is she just like an animal murderer, like she just like probably flicks her bean to the thought of killing animals that she owns. She's also a terrible shot because despite shooting it in the face with a fucking shotgun, like she somehow missed and like left it injured and screaming in front of these workers who you could only imagine started working a lot faster than they previously were before she just started. So she's got this book coming out in a few months where she recounts this story. And even Republicans are like, Jesus Christ, that's psychotic. Like, no, I
Yeah.
own that type of I own that type of dog. You need to fucking train it. Otherwise, what was the point of buying that dog? Like, you're not just gonna get a
Jesus.
mutt variant of that dog. Like, they're expensive ass hunting dogs. Like, even Republicans are mad at her. And I guess she just thought, like, oh, you guys are all a bunch of sociopathic monsters. Like, here's something you're really gonna get a kick out of. Uh, yeah. So she recounted these stories, and everyone's like, And the goat just have a vet chop his balls off. Like it literally costs like $40 to have a vet come to your property and fix your goat for you. Uh, so that was her daughter's dog though, and her daughter came home and cried and asked where her dog was, and she's like, "Oh well, your mommy's a fucking psychopath," and yeah, I had to put her down. Uh, so if that wasn't bad enough, like she's been on this press tour lately, and she's like, "No, it's totally fine. You guys are blowing this way out of proportion." She even went as far as to call it fake news. Like
Oh, jeez.
literally, it's based on her own words. Everyone's like, "What are you talking about? Fake news?" Like it's in your book that you wrote, presumably to become vice president. Which, like, I don't know if she was like it was just self defense telling everybody that story because now it's likely that she's not going to be the next vice president. And you know what happens to Trump's VPs? She's probably going to be executed by a mob.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also on this press tour, she's like, no, it's totally fine. I just murdered like 3 of my family's horses last week, and everyone's like, how
It's
does this
totally
make it
normal.
any better? How is
Totally
that
normal.
any better? Yeah. So apparently also like just this morning it was revealed by the publisher that due to requests from her, instead of cutting out the story of how she like literally drills off to murdering animals, uh like that chapter is staying in the book, but at her request the publisher is removing a chapter about uh her trip to North Korea where she met Kim Jong Un. And there's a Fox host that was asking her like just this morning, was like, so what happened in North Korea? What, like, why did you remove this chapter? Like, don't you think it would be interesting for people to know why, like, what you did in North Korea, like what it was like meeting Kim Jong Un? She got very serious and solemn and said, "Well, that was a personal story, and I don't like to reveal what my meetings are like with foreign world leaders." So, and he's like, "Well, why is it in your book in the first place?" She's like, "No, it's personal. It's never gonna see the light of day. This story, you don't need to know it. Your audience at home doesn't need to know it. It's out of the book, and it's never going to be told again." Her book, by the way, is called "No Going Back," which, whoa. So yeah, as much as I hate that story, it was also kind of hilarious watching just the fallout that came from just what the fuck was she thinking?
I didn't. I guess I didn't recognize the name, but I did see an article. Maybe it was earlier today, or maybe yesterday. But apparently, she never actually went to North Korea. It was a completely fabricated story. And
That's
on
even
these
better.
on these press junkets that she's been on, they're like pushing her, like, well, why'd you make it up? Like, and she's on record as says, and she's on record as saying, I've met with many world leaders. I've traveled around the world. Maybe I shouldn't have put that anecdote in the book. Like, oh, I just made up a story because I've met other world leaders, just not that one.
Well, there's no going back now. Uh, it's in your book. Well, I guess it's not in your book anymore. But what, like, wow. I mean, everyone knows that Donald Trump fucking hates dogs. I mean, it's his go-to insult to everyone. Like, he's like, "Oh, I fucked that guy like a dog," and everyone's like, "What? Like a dog?
You fucked a
You
dog?
you fucked a you fucked a man like a dog? Why did you say that?" Or or like Joe Biden, like he refers to him as a dog, like all the time, and everyone fucking loves dogs, but even he understands most people like dogs.
You don't just kill
Not Kristi
dogs.
Noem.
Well, maybe she and Seinfeld can get together and commiserate about how they've been canceled by the woke left.
You know when you're covered in dog blood, and then you're covered in goat blood, and all the workers on your property are scared of you? What's the deal with that?
Well, well, hey, I don't want to end us on such a dark note. This isn't necessarily a story, but this is something that I thought you'd find funny. So, in baseball, Major League Baseball, over the last couple of years, this new trend has emerged where teams get props or do strange, silly things to celebrate home runs. So, for example, I believe it was the Atlanta Braves had this like giant hat, like this oversized baseball cap that they would wear. The Dodgers, maybe it was the Dodgers, I can't remember which team, had like a samurai helmet and a sword. The Minnesota Twins this year have a sausage, an actual cooked sausage. It's been the same sausage all season.
Wait,
Where
like the same exact one, or do they cook another one
no,
like
the
every
same
game?
exact, like just this cooked sausage that they bring with them when they bring it to home games. When they travel, they double wrap it in cellophane because they're responsible, and they stuff it in a shoe, and they travel with it in a shoe. But yeah, it's their lucky home run sausage, and I just thought it was hilarious. It's funny to see after a Minnesota Twin hits a home run, they just grab the sausage and
They
shake a
just grab
sausage.
it like
They just
ah.
they just they just grab the sausage.
Well, that is really fun, and thank you for bringing us back to a positive note to end the episode on. I definitely appreciate it.
And
Um,
I appreciate you, dear viewer, who stuck around for this entire 35 to 40-minute episode. If you didn't stick around, well, fuck you. But if you did stick around, drop us a comment. Let us know what you liked. Let us know what you hated. Did you like Stone's hair? Did you think his lips were really sexy and plump? Because I definitely did. And don't forget to subscribe and turn notifications on, because if this doesn't work out, one of us will die.
oh, also, what do you think was the weirdest story we talked about this week, Joey? We got to get to the bottom of that.
Oh, I think you've won this week for sure with your Kristi Noem story. That's pretty goddamn bizarre.
Yeah, it's certainly not a story written about an actual human being, but somehow she's at least shaped like one. But okay, cool. I was gonna say loser has to shoot their dog and their goat and three of their
Mm,
horses next week. But
mm.
yeah. Well,
Well,
anyway, thank you so much for joining us. I love you very much, and so does Joy. Get home safe.
bye.